Well, then compact. Oh. Yeah, that's a problem. Hello and welcome to Questionable Commands. I'm Alistair, and if you're new here, you're probably wondering what's going on. You probably recognize that this is Claude Code. You see that we ran out of context window, and that our context window is too small to even compact our context window. So what's going on? How did this happen? How did we end up in this state? This instance of Claude Code is pointed at my locally running instance of Qwen 3.6 35 billion parameter. It's running on a 2016-ish dual Xeon server with 64 gigs of RAM and a RTX 2080 graphics card. And because of self-hosting limitations, my context window isn't huge. So first up, how do we get ourselves out of this mess? And if you don't mind shipping your data off to Anthropic, there is a way to get out of this scenario. So let's exit out of our session. I'm actually going to split my view here. So I've got a brand new shell without my Claude Code reconfigured, and I'm going to fire up Claude again. And from here, I'm going to do a resume. I'm going to pick my session. We'll see our errors that we had before. And here in the warning, it's showing us what model we had previously been using and telling us that it's not available with Anthropic. That's expected. And from here, we can do a/compact. All right, and with that done, what I can do now is leave the session over here, close this out, fire up Claude in my original window here, which is pointed at Qwen. Then I can do another /resume and pick my previous session. And if I up arrow a few times, we'll see the previous command and I can resubmit this. Now at this point, we can have Claude/Qwen pick up where we left off here, but eventually Anthropic is going to compact the conversation down to a size that is still too large for my server to be able to handle. And in the previous video, we actually hit this condition almost immediately. And all we had asked for was a hello world in Python. And this was the result of setting two different parameters incorrectly. One was -c and the other was -np. -np is the number of parallel processes it can handle at the same time. So basically the number of concurrent users. -c is your KV allocation, or your key value cache size. And that number gets divided by your number of parallel processes. On top of that, Claude did the math in advance. So in that scenario, I was starting with half of my desired KV allocation, and then I was dividing it by half on top of that. So ultimately, I was ending up with a quarter of the KV allocation that I actually wanted. Now, after telling Claude what happened, it went in there and it fixed the KV allocation, or the -c flag for us, but it still left -np, or -- parallel, at 2. Now, that's the state that we're currently in. So let's see if we can get Claude into a bad state. And I think it should be relatively easy. So I'm going to let it resume where it left off. Okay, we're back into this error state, and our -c flag, or our KV allocation, is pretty much maxed out. But our NP setting, or our number of parallel tasks that can happen at the same time, that is set to 2. So if we SSH to the server, set that down to 1, we should be able to resume this session, because we'll have doubled our context window. So I'll split my view here, and I'll SSH to the host. SSH Alistair at Claude. I'll go ahead and become root. The file to modify is in etc llama swap config.yaml. Somewhere in this file, we should see a -np. And there it is. It is set to 2. So let's go ahead and set it down to 1. Save it, exit, and then we'll run systemctl, restart, llama swap.service. I'll bring llama swap up here for the moment while we wait for Coder to start back up. Okay, Coder is ready again. And we'll go back to Claude and we will tell Claude/Qwen. Claude pointed at Qwen. Your work was interrupted by a bad API call. Please resume. And once again, we've exceeded our maximum context size. But we should now have the overhead to compact. So let's go ahead and try that. Hey, all right, compact succeeded. Now we don't want this context size error to constantly interrupt our work, forcing us to manually compact. It'd be nice if it just did that for us, right? And there is at least one way we can do that. So it's going to showcase the variable name that I know works and the variable name, the environment variable name that I hope works, and then we'll try the one that I hope works and see if it does, because that's the better option. Okay, we lost some footage there, but good news, we haven't lost much. So I had ran a compact, I quit Claude, I did an export, Claude auto compact percent override 75. And I explained, I don't think this is going to do anything. The reason why I don't think it's going to do anything is because Claude doesn't have any context for how large the context window is on the server. But we're trying this first. We're going to see how it goes. All right, I've got a little bit of a conundrum because I keep throwing tasks at it to try to fill up context, but we haven't run out of context yet, but I'm running out of features for it to create. I'll think of something. Oh, I know. We can make it run tests. Write tests. All right, jackpot. We finally hit it. That took long enough. Okay, so we know that the environment variable that I set did not work. Let's compact this. And we can't compact. Okay, so let's pull out our trick. Exit the session. I'll go ahead and expand this out. We'll do a split screen. So we've got an entirely fresh shell with no environment variable set. Fire up Claude, /resume, /compact. And while we wait for this to compact, what we actually need is a number from this error message. We need this maximum token size. So I'll go ahead and copy that while we wait. And then I'll go over here and I'll just fire up Python really quick. And the recommendation that I'm seeing online is that you want to set 75% of your available context. We grabbed our maximum number of tokens from here, pasted over here, times 0.75. That's our number, 98304. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to exit out of Python, and we are going to export Claude Code _auto _compact _window. Set that to our 98304. Hit enter. Now we're done with this Claude session over here, so we'll exit that out. Close that terminal window. Fire up Claude back in this terminal window with all of our environment variables. We will resume. I will up arrow to the previous command and I'll hit enter. And if all goes well, we should see this auto compact. Hey, we got there. Auto compacting. Excellent. You know, it's not ideal that you have to know how the server is configured because, you know, if you just want to build a system and turn over the keys with a shell script and tell people like, have fun, they're going to encounter these errors. They're going to be surprised. They're not going to know how to fix it. That's part of the reason why I was really hoping that the Claude auto compact percent value was just going to magically work. Unfortunately, it did not. Not a surprise. But if you're running models at home and you run into this issue, now you've got a strategy to not only recover your context, but to prevent it from happening in the future. So I hope you found this helpful. I'm glad you came with me. I wanted to do something relatively short and easy. Just got back from Seattle. I'm surviving a cold, mostly better now. But like I said, I hope you found it interesting, had a good time, followed along, played some jazz, ate some peanuts. I don't like doing these outros is just sometimes like, I don't know. Like, comment, and subscribe. And you'll see me in the next one.